Alright, well that took a hot minute to get figured out. Can't tell if this is working yet or not. Alright, well that took a hot minute to get figured out. Why is there volume? I don't want volume. Alright, so I have it open in a different window. Oh boy, okay. So, I hope everything's good. I don't know. It was being very difficult for me this morning. I don't know why it's causing me so many troubles. But let me just... I actually want to open this up again in a different window. But yeah, welcome everybody. Just give me a few more seconds here to get set up. Mute that. I hope that there's no, like, really bad buffering or delays for you guys, because it says that it's like, oh, there's some stream status is bad for some reason, and I don't know why. I'm not too sure why it's saying that, but if you guys see anything, if it's, like, bugging out on you guys, just let me know. And hopefully I can fix it. But we're gonna just assume for now that everything's good and that everything's golden and get started. Cool. So, like always for my critique streams, I won't be able to really talk to you guys much on the chat. This is more gonna be me interacting with the people who are getting critiqued. So they have their own little Discord chat that I'm going to be reading their comments on, just because that way I don't miss their questions and stuff while I'm critiquing their stuff. So I apologize. I won't probably be able to talk to you guys much during the stream, just because otherwise the stream will go on forever, because these usually end up taking like 2 to 3 hours anyways. I did try doing something a little different this time. I decided to kind of pre-redline stuff, if that makes sense. So I kind of did some work on the pieces before the stream. That way it's not just spent with me kind of humming and hawing about stuff. So hopefully it'll go by quicker that way. What else do I have to say before we get started? I think that's pretty much it. In the stream description, it should say, you know, all the names in order. So if you're wondering when yours is gonna come, just kind of find who's getting critiqued right now, and then you can see how many people after is yours. So as I was saying with the pre-redlining stuff, there are some that I didn't get to just because it was kind of spur of the moment this morning. I'm like, oh, maybe I should do that. So not all of them are done, but the majority of them are. So just making sure everything's good. Alright. So everyone can hear, everyone can see, like you see my mouse and stuff on the screen, just double checking. Give me some thumbs ups or stuff like that. Just let me know that the sound and everything, the visuals are good, and then I'll get started. Alright, I'm just gonna put the first person's name. Alright, seems like everything's good. Awesome, thanks guys. So we're starting off with Phantomsylveon. Man, my voice is... hopefully it holds up for the whole stream. I'm not very good at talking first thing in the morning. Let's move that back to where it's supposed to be. There we go. Alrighty, so let's just open that up. So here we have Phantomsylveon's piece, an awesome fun piece with a bunch of characters, which I really like. So I'll give you my first comments for this before I start talking about what I did and what I could change to it. I think you said you had commented that you wanted some critique on like eyes and stuff like that. I honestly think your eyes and your anatomy is really well done. I think what is really throwing this piece off though is the perspective. So before, I didn't do anything with the perspective yet, so I kind of just want to do a few things before I show the other things, like the shading and whatnot. So you have this back, like kind of like a horizon line back there, which I'd almost just raise just a little bit so that this guy's feet aren't sitting on it. And then you can just have like even just a basic kind of floor plan. It doesn't have to be anything fancy or super accurate, but it really comes in handy when trying to place your characters into a scene. I have found one of the biggest things that's kind of hurting this piece is this table here. So let's just... Because one, you forgot to put the legs here, which isn't like a big deal, but it's kind of, this side of the table is kind of floating. So let's add in some of the legs. And as you'll see, the way that you angled the table so much is kind of fighting against your characters sitting on it. So it would almost be good to flatten it out a little more, but I'm just gonna go with the perspective that you kind of have going for now. So basically what I'm just saying is that before you draw your characters and stuff, make sure that you have the ground plane and this table set up before you start drawing. It'll really help make your characters fit into place. So like this character here, I would almost like have higher up. Also the character size relations are a little bit off. I'm gonna say they're all cats, like just regular domestic cats, I'm not too sure, but like these cats in the front are very tiny compared to the cats by the table, and this cat in the back is also very large considering the way perspective goes. So just kind of keep those things in mind while you're drawing. So like you'd almost just want this cat here. But like I said, like your anatomy's good, so I'm not gonna comment too much on that. But yeah, so just some things to keep in mind before you even start drawing. So I'm gonna hide that for now. So with the anatomy, there's just a couple things that kind of stood out to me. I'm actually just gonna put a little white filter on top so you can kind of see what I did. Especially with this cat sitting right here on the table. The body's kind of like, the way you drew it, it almost looks like it's slumped all the way over the table, but that's not exactly how the bottom half of his body is following the rules. So like, his shoulder should almost just be coming up right at the edge of the table with his arm lying across the table and the hand hanging off of the side of the table. I would also move this, I guess that would be his right arm, kind of more in the middle, like going over his body instead of behind, because it's fighting a lot with his cheek fur here, and at first it took me a while to realize that this was his cheek fur and not like his shoulder or something. So that's just something to think about. Definitely make sure you're sketching out, the full bodies, because especially also when it comes to this character, his bottom legs don't really look like they are attached to, oops, where is this one? Here it is. His bottom legs look like they're not really part of the same body, so it's very important to like draw through and sketch out their bodies. With this character here, like it's pretty much good. Like there's also like there's some like just anatomy things, like his knee's a little too high up, but I don't know. I'm not an expert on drawing anthros, so I'm not going to comment too much on that. The only thing that I also noticed is that his thumb is on the wrong side for his hand. It's a very common mistake, just something you got to think about. His thumb would technically be on this side. So that's about all I could say about the anatomy. I think your anatomy, like I said, is pretty strong. You just got to make sure you're planning your characters with the environment better. So now let's move on to the lighting. So I'm actually going to hide this. So I think you have a good general idea of like where highlights and where shading should go. But I think the only thing, I'm not sure what program you're using or how you did the shading, but it almost looks like you took the burn tool and kind of went over to shade it. The only problem with that is it becomes very patchy. Like you can see that there's just like patches of light and dark. It's not a very smooth shading, and it's almost just a little bit too soft. So what I did, I only did it on like a couple characters just to kind of give you an idea. But so I have this light source here, which is where your light source is coming from. And you really want to like add in some nice darks and some really crisp lines. Like it looks really messy right now because I obviously did it very fast. But you want to really crisp up the edges of the shading and not so much do it all over the body. Kind of really plan where those lights are coming from. And then I also added just some little bits of highlights, which you probably can barely tell. But I added some highlights onto like the edges of the fur to make them stand out. And that can really help differentiate like the cheek fur from the shoulders and stuff like that. So yeah, my critique, I'd say my best advice for your shading is try doing it as more of a solid color. If you can, if you have Photoshop or Paint Tool Sci, you can do like what I did and put your color as a multiply layer. So like when this is normal, it just looks like this. But when you multiply it and lower the opacity, it adds like an even shading over all the different colors. It's especially helpful when it comes to like cats with patterns and stuff like that. Oh my goodness, I'm losing my voice already. First one. It's gonna be an interesting stream, guys. But yeah, so that's it really helps keep things even, and so it doesn't turn out all blotchy. And you especially have to like watch out for these areas in here, where it kinda is spilling into the other areas. If you clean up those edges, it really will make the shading pop a lot more too. So I hope that was helpful for you, and I hope for anybody else who had these same questions. So we're gonna leave that one there. And as always, at the end of the stream, guys, I will be posting these into a DeviantArt stash folder for you guys to look at after, just so you can kind of get a better look and better quality of what I did to your piece. And the reason I'm not taking email submissions anymore is that I can't limit them, and like I just get so many of them that it's just hard. Like I just end up getting a little bit lost in them. So that's the only reason I don't take email. And plus it's just so much easier to communicate with everybody as a group on Discord. And like Discord's very easy to use. So I just I feel like it'd be an easy push for you guys to use Discord. So now... My leg mistake was spotted. No problem, no problem. But yeah, definitely just something you can work on, Phantom. But yeah, glad you can make it for your piece here. So now... let me just see what time it is. One second. Okay, we're still going. Okay, so for some reason the timer is not going up on the stream, but that's okay. How many minutes are we in? 13 minutes, okay. Oh, the timer's right there, duh. I'm blind, guys, I'm blind. I just want to kind of do these timestamps ahead of time so that I know roughly where I start these critiques. Alright. So now we are going to move on to the Reeseling. Or I think it's just Reeseling. The Reeseling. Reeseling, there we go. So I think that's all saved. Let's find the Riesling's part. Alright, so this one. Awesome. Oh wait, yeah, it's Riesling, okay. So the Reeseling wanted critiques on just lighting and just an overall critique on their piece. So I'm going to start off with the lighting and kind of give my advice on that. So one thing that kind of just I noticed right off the bat with your light rays is that they're not really following a set perspective. So like usually a light will come in a cone like this, like you kind of did on the outside. But these two inside streaks are a little off. They kind of just need to be in a little more of an angle. One thing that's really important when doing like a light source like this is you kind of want some of these streaks to land where the character is, and you want some of them to even go behind the character to give it a little more three-dimensionality kind of stuff. So what I did first and foremost is I kind of added like it doesn't need to be this bright. I just made it bright so you guys can see what I did. I added the light source. I kind of made it pool on the ground here with the other ones kind of peeking through. This one's behind, this one's in front. And I also erased some of the lighting where the character is, especially like in the shadows, and especially behind, because you gotta make sure you include where the light isn't hitting and adding that shading to really get the light source for this piece. So with that, I also just kind of added where I would add lights and shadows. So I'd really buff up the lights in these areas, right where the light would be directly hitting, and you really want to darken these shadow areas as well, because you really need that contrast to make it look like it's a very bright light source. Other than that, though, I think this is a very strong piece. I think you could definitely work a little more on your anatomy. So I'll just give a quick overlay of some anatomy things that can be fixed. I just gotta drink water here. Alright, so you definitely want to, I'm not sure if you do this, but it's a good advice for everyone else who might not know, but make sure you're drawing the body of your character before you put the clothing on. So you definitely want to like really figure out where the body underneath is. Especially this back leg here, it's starting from like his midsection or their midsection. So you definitely want to, if you wanted to include that other leg, you'd almost want this leg to stay the way it is, a little bit high up. But then you could lower this leg some more so it would peek through the bottom. And have maybe his foot up a little bit. And as well with the shoulders, I would push him back a little more. And I think the other arm works pretty well. Same with the tail. The tail's working really good. So that's just a basic, a simple way to keep your character's anatomy good with the clothing. So then on top of that, you would just like add clothing, which you could probably add a little more like folds and stuff into the clothing if you want. That's something you can maybe work on. So let's just have like a t-shirt, sweater. So like places where folds would be really helpful is like at the ends of the clothing and like where the body's kind of bending as well. But yeah, other than that, I think it's a very strong piece. There's just some like basic shading things that you can do to really up the contrast on the shading. Don't be afraid to go a little dark. And then you can like kind of knock it back a little bit, and also don't forget to go to have some crisp edges on your shading as well. I find that's a very common theme throughout a lot of people who are asking for these shading critiques, is that their shading is just very soft. It's like they use a very soft tool to add it in, when in reality shadows are really crisp in most cases. So don't be afraid to have like a very defined edge. So I hope that was helpful for you, the Reeseling. I'm not sure if you're here or not yet, or if you're gone, but hopefully you'll be able to see this after. If you have any questions, don't be afraid to leave them in the comments. So we'll move on to the next one now. My goal is to kind of keep these critiques to about 5 to 10 minutes each, hopefully 5, preferably, just so you guys know. I'm not trying to rush too much, but I don't want the stream to go on for 4 hours and bore you guys. Cheetah crisp, by crisp I just mean like instead of using, so let me just, I'll just use a quick, this is an example. Say we have an object, it's a cylinder, whatever. Instead of using like a soft tool like the airbrush to add in your shading like this, it's better to, like you can do that in some areas, but it's better to start off with, a harder edge, like this. So like this is a more crisp shading. And then if you want to add some softer lines into it, you can go on top of it with a soft brush. Where's my soft brush? And just kind of like soften some of the areas like that. That's all I mean. Alright. And yes, correct, Nirawa. So, or Nirawa, I always never know how to say your name. So, more of an edge and more contrast is helpful. So now we're moving on to Rykett. Alrighty, so let's open up their piece. What are we time? We got 20. And I believe there's an animation. Yes, it was. Alright. So Rykett had an animation to submit. So with the animations, I don't think anybody asked for like lip sync help too much, so I won't have sound on for the most part. Well, maybe I'll have sound. Just make sure my stream had the volume off. Good. So the sound probably won't be too crisp for you. It might be a bit of an echo, just because I'm not wearing my headphones, so you're going to be hearing like the audio from the computer and the thing there. So we'll listen to it a couple times with sound, and then I'm going to view it a couple times without sound. Let me just get the chat back up. Oops. Move it. So I will say, in a good way, I don't have too much to say about this piece. You did a very, a very simplistic background, but it works really well with your character. I especially like how you simplified the texture on him by having like a matte in the background. It's a very handy way to do things. And I really love the squash and stretch that you did on the bounce in the beginning here. That's turned out very well. This is a very complex character to animate, so you did a really good job on that. Nice drop shadow effect as he's coming down. That really helps with the perspective and kind of telling us where the character is in 3D space. One thing that you could have done maybe if you wanted to is made these lines in the background on these mountains a little lighter. That way they're not fighting with the forward perspective or the forward foreground background. That makes no sense, but you know, this area. I mean, you did that in a good way by making these lines a lot thicker, but you could have also just lightened those lines back there. And I would almost take out the line on the cloud. Clouds don't usually have very thick outlines on them. Let's just take a look here. So like, awesome job on this. Like, I don't even know how to make an armadillo come out of a ball, so you did a really good job. I like how you have the stars pop in like that, very naturally. And like, this scene's very good, the way he like teeters and totters back. The only thing I would say, if something that you can think about in the future, is make sure that your feet, if they're grounded and they're not moving, like if they're not coming off the ground, that they're staying in one place. So like, this foot here, it's fine when it slides back here, but then once it gets planted in this spot, make sure it stays there, because right now it's kind of wobbling like everywhere. So like same with this front foot here, when it's on the ground, as soon as it touches the ground there, make sure it stays in that place instead of moving back and forth. That'll really help your character feel like they're actually, grounded on the ground, instead of kind of like floating around. Trust me, if you do it, you'll notice like such a big difference. You'll just feel the difference, you know? Like, it doesn't look bad the way it is, but you definitely just feel something a little bit off with the feet sliding like that. And as for the head shake, I mean, the head shake looks great. Let's see here. Yeah, you got some really good like follow through and overlapping action with it. I mean, I'd almost say like these lines are a very stylistic choice, which isn't a bad thing. Another way you could have done it is just in like a smear frame, but like this is a different kind of smear frame, sort of. But it still works out really well. Like, you barely really even notice it when the animation goes by. And it just works good. I really like the way his ears kind of like flop up at this part. Really cute. I can tell you're going for like that kind of boiling line look at the end here, which is okay. Nothing wrong with that. Kind of just helps keep those last few frames alive. So yeah, so basically the only thing I can really say is just make sure your feet aren't sliding with when your animation for your characters. That comes to like walk cycles, when they're just standing around. But other than that, everything's looking good. So really good job, Rykett. Thank you for your submission. So now, I'm just gonna close that one. Now we're on to Nirawa. Is that how you say your name, Nirawa? I always feel like I'm saying it wrong. I'm like, is it Nirawa? Is it Nirawa? Let me know if I'm saying it wrong. So this is another animation that got sent in. A work in progress animation. So we'll play that a couple times for you guys before I go into critiquing it and giving my advice. So open it with QuickTime. So yeah, again, played a couple times here. Oops. Make that on loop. Alright, I got confirmation. It said Nirawa. Nirawa. I can attempt that. So right off the bat, I can say like this part right here with, is it Thistleclaw? Is this Thistleclaw that we have here? I can't remember the designs for the map or not. But it looks like just really good. I love this run. The way it pans over works really well. This turnaround is great, and like the pause, just A++ on all that. The only thing I would say here with, I'm assuming it's Tiger Paw at this point, I think. He kind of pops on these last frames. I kind of can tell what you're doing, but maybe hide like these 2 frames where the background isn't really moving with him with like a blur. Because you can just see like the background staying still, but the character's moving forward. So you can cover that up with like blurring it very quickly, and then putting it back in focus for this frame. As for this scene is good. I don't have much to say about that. It's adorable. And that one's a good continuation from the last part. Now, as for these frames, I will say you kind of overdid it with the smears. Usually a smear will only last like 1 frame on a very fast movement, so like right here is probably fine because there's a pretty big jump between these 2 drawings. But then on these last few ones, it just kind of makes it look a little bit wobbly. So I would, in the future, maybe just tame down your smear frames. Just include just 1 or 2. You don't need this many. And usually you don't need to like settle in from a smear frame, so you don't need to like do a very, very kind of like a tween in from the smears, you can just kind of like pop back into the normal drawing, if that makes sense. And then let's see. But yeah, I think the rest of it looks good. I don't remember like what the story behind this was, why Thistleclaw's mad, but he mad. And this is kind of just a personal preference myself. I like how you did the transition to the paw, but I would almost have it him moving off this way on the screen and having his paw come upward instead of it being facing down like that. Have it kind of like his paw is up in the air about to swipe, because it's just kind of is a very awkward movement, if that makes sense. But I do like the way you had the claws pop out. That looks really good. And it's a nice transition to the next one. And again, like, you don't need to, like, subtly go into these smear frames. Like, you could have just kept this as a smear frame, and made the rest normal frames. Just a suggestion. And then with this one, my only critique is that Thistleclaw's paw is very tiny. Like, if Tiger Paw is an apprentice and technically supposed to be, a little bit smaller than him, his paw would be a little bigger, I would think. Which I know something that would be hard to change, so you probably won't end up changing it for this, but that's just something I noticed. But I do like the way that you had, like, the scratch marks come on. It's very natural looking. You can definitely see, like, the grimace on Tiger Paw, which is nice. And again, like, it's very difficult with his angle. Like, his paw just kinda, you can't really tell where Thistleclaw's arm's coming from. It kinda just looks like a puppet arm right now. Which is not a big deal. It's just, it's kinda difficult with this kind of close-up. But I think it still looks fine. I wouldn't worry too much about it. And this last frame looks good. This last scene's good. So yeah, my basic, big things are just kind of tame it down a bit on the smear frames. But the rest of it is looking great. So yeah, really good job, and I'm looking forward to seeing this one done. Good stuff. So now, next we have... Let's see... Sorry, just pulling down my web thing. Next is Sandpuff. Which is an adorable name. I believe theirs was a drawing that they sent in. There it is. Alright, so with Sandpuff's drawing here, we have a drawing, I believe it's of, they said Sandpaw and Redtail, so Sandpaw being sad after Redtail dies. I'm just going to just put in a timestamp here quickly. Alright. So they wanted help specifically on the lighting and anatomy, so like shading and anatomy. So I did come in here earlier and kind of just do a bit of a thing for the lighting and stuff, but I wanted to kind of go through the anatomy quickly with you. Sure. No, it's okay, Nirawa. I might go, maybe I'll go back later and I'll send you a screen cap of what I mean. But for now, just continue on with this one. So your anatomy is not too bad, like especially like this scene with Sandpaw is really good. The feet here, I guess like she is kind of flexing her paws. But you definitely maybe want to look a little more on cat feet and what they look like when their claws are extended. But basically the only thing that really stands out to me is that the tail should be coming like a little more forward like that. It kind of just flattens out. And like maybe have this leg come out a little more. But mostly, like the anatomy mostly on Sandpaw is good. But as for Redtail here, I did personally think that it would be better if his pose was more facing this way. Let me just add. Kind of see what I mean. So I kind of redrew him, one, a little bit smaller so that it looks like he's a little bit further back from Sandpaw, and two, I had his body facing this way, so since it's more of like a natural kind of position, and it just helps the image flow into each other a little better. But as for the anatomy on him right now, this paw especially is something that stands out to me. So I'm just kind of trying to draw his shoulder through. So, like the cat's paws usually only bend like down like that at the wrist, so you just kind of need to extend the forearm and draw the paw there. And this shoulder comes a little bit too far forward, and it'd almost be nice to see his paws as well. Like you could add like some mist and stuff around them, but it would be nice to see the paws. It's fine that you hid the back paws like that. I think that works out fine. Definitely try like drawing like 2 circles, one for the chest, one for like the pelvis, and connect them. That really helps kind of bring out, helps unify kind of the body a bit. But as for the face, I think your anatomy on the faces is really good. Not much I can say about that. So yeah, it's basically just those front paws that I had a bit of a thing that needed to be fixed with. And as for the lighting, I went through and just did like a basic highlight and shadow for this. So I made the light source where you had it before, but I made it a little more up in the sky, right? Because in your original picture, it's kind of coming from directly in front of her, but if she's looking up in the sky, you'd imagine that the light source is the moon, would be further up in the sky. So I just changed that ever so slightly. So that would just be something that you change the light rays on. And again, like I said with the other pieces, let's take a look again. So you do have like that kind of crisp shading, which is nice, but you almost just need to add a little more in, which is what I did here. So like I really turned the back of her shaded, and then I came in with the highlights, and your highlights were just kind of in the wrong spots in some places. Like under her chin here should be dark, not light, as well as the underside of the fur should be dark, not light. So just kind of think about those things, think about where the light source is coming from, and think of it as like a 3D object, you know? If the light's coming from here, the shadow's going to be on this side, and the light's going to be on that side, kind of thing. But yeah, other than that, I think this is really a really good piece. I love the split screen, and like I love the raw emotion in Sandpaw's face. I think it turned out really great. So really good job. Awesome stuff, Sandpuff. Now we're moving on to Faded Cat. I believe, yeah, there's a drawing as well. And what time do we have here? 38. Alright, so we're making pretty good progress so far. Awesome stuff. So close that, open up Faded Cats. I have it here. What? Oh no, Faded Cats was an animation. Ha 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 ha. My mistake. Alright, so let's open this up again with the QuickTime Clear. So we're gonna have it play through a couple times like before, with sound, a couple times without sound, and then I'll kind of give my 2 cents. Turn it down a bit. Alright, so let's watch it.
Goodbye, Joanna. You're gone, and yet you're mine. I'm fine, Joanna. Goodbye, Joanna. You're gone and yet you're mine. I'm fine, Joanna.
Alright, so let's play it a couple times without the sound. Awesome. Alright, so let's start off with this first shot here. I really like the staging of it. It works really well. I'm not sure what kind of program you're animating it in or what kind of options you have to do stuff in. But like it would have been nice to maybe have like a bit of a blur on Tawny Pelt in the beginning and then kind of so there's a thing called a rack focus, which is like a camera thing where you can have this character in focus while this one's blurred. And then when he turns his head, you could blur Tiger Star and then kind of have Tawny Pelt come back in focus. If you have the option to do that, that would, it's just kind of a nice kind of finishing touch to your animation. But other than that, like the staging's really good in this, and the animation's really good. The lip sync was also really great throughout this whole thing. Good job on that. Small thing with Tawny Pelt's eye. I think I've mentioned this in like past just streams that I've done, but just for anybody who's wondering, when you're doing like smear frames and stuff, you generally want to have the leading edge, so like the eye is coming in this direction. I wish I could draw on QuickTime. So the eye is coming into to screen left, so this side of the eye should be like just a round edge, while the following edge is the one that you would kind of do the wobbly lines on. And then same with this one here, you'd want the eye to still be round on this side, and maybe a little oval on the other side. But other than that, works good. I would almost want her to blink when she's kind of coming down from this to this pose. That's like a minor thing, but a blink would be nice to go in there. And she hops down, which is good. It would also be kind of cool that if when she hopped down, if you had Tiger Star follow her jump, so that he'd be kind of looking at her as she jumps down. A little more, like just a couple more frames in there, because especially in this next frame, he's looking down at her anyways, so it'd kind of just help connect the two shots. My goodness, I need to learn how to talk better. My throat's going. But then this jump here is really good. Like I love her exiting the screen. That works well. Again, something that I was talking about with the blurring that would really help sell this scene is if you can, it'd be nice to have all these background characters blurred, except for Tiger Star and Tawny Pelt. And then when Tawny Pelt leaves the screen here, then she can become blurred and the background characters can come into focus. That way we know that now we need to focus on these two characters here. And again, something that you'd probably need a little more foresight to do before you started this scene would be when Blackfoot at this time jumps toward Stonefur, I believe it is. It'd be nice to kind of have the camera just ever so slightly follow them, like just a tiny, tiny bit, have the camera move to follow them while they're tackling off screen. That way, again, it helps lead our eye to follow them. And then this scene's good. I love the little camera shake you have. The bite and stuff looks really great. Same with this scene. I love the kind of camera shake when the arm hits the ground. That's very nice. Yeah, I think that last scene works pretty well. I don't think I wouldn't change anything about it. But like overall, like the things I'm saying are very nitpicky things, and it would just kind of help plus your animation. But other than that, like this is a really great part, and I don't have too many things that I would change about it. So really good job. Keep it up. Yes, in Adobe Animate, I think you can add blurs, I'm pretty sure, so if you wanted to practice with that or kind of play around, maybe that's something you could add to your future animations. Alright, so now we're on to SEGAmastergirl, I think is how it's said. Or is it say? I guess it's like, is it 2 A's or is it just the one? Is it SEGAmastergirl? I have to, hold on, I have to double check that name so I'm not spelling it wrong. I think I saw them in the chat. Hold on, let me just see if I can add them. Okay, so SEGAmastergirl, that makes more sense. I think I spelled it wrong in the description, I'll have to change that after. Alright, so SEGAmastergirl sent in a drawing. Let's open it up here. Ah, yes, this one. So, like, honestly, just, like, first and foremost, amazing job. The lighting and stuff on this looks fantastic. But I know you said you wanted some more help on the lighting and the composition. So, I kind of had a few things that we could help out on that. Just see, it's 45. Just put the timestamp down. Alrighty. So, first and foremost, the one thing I did right away, because to make a scene like this that's very dramatic look even more dramatic, the best thing you can do is make it into like the typical 1080p. So like, I think it's, what is it, 1920 by 1080p. So I did that by adding these black borders here. It kind of adds some more cinematics to it. If you didn't want to block out more of your drawing, you can also like just have it on multiply and lower the opacity a bit. But it just kind of adds that a bit more, like I said, cinematicness to it. But I'm just going to keep it black just for what I was working on for this. Other than that, though, the composition's great. I love this kind of like Dutch angle warped background that you did. It makes the tension very high in it, which is nice. So one thing I did was I kind of just added a bit more drop shadows to the ground. That's just a very minor thing. I just noticed the characters. I think you did the drop shadows. I think that's what this is here. But since the light source is behind them, it would make more sense that the shadows would be more in front of them, you know? And so one thing I also did to help the lighting is I made the shadows a bit more dramatic. So I added some, like, on top of the highlights that you did, I added some deeper shadows in some of the areas by just doing some multiply layers and stuff. And I also just made sure, so this is a technique I usually like to do while I do my shading, is I will just do a basic pass of shading over things with a hard edge, and then I'll duplicate that, and then blur that duplicated layer to kind of add some soft focus without completely ruining the hard edge. Then I also just added some extra highlights, just some very, very dim rim lighting to things to kind of help things pop. When there's a fire around, there's going to be ambient lighting bouncing off of everything, so it's always nice to kind of just add a very, very light rim light to everything. And so I also did the blur thing to that as well. And another little thing that I added that I thought would kind of help the storytelling in this was I just moved this character's pupils to be looking back at the fire, because I feel like at least one character, doesn't need to be this character, it could be this character, but I feel like one of them needs to be looking back at the fire to kind of help the audience kind of connect what they're fearful of. I mean, obviously it's pretty obvious, but storytelling-wise, it's a lot stronger if you have the character looking at what they're afraid of. And I also shrunk the pupils a bit as well. Man, I gotta get some more water here in a second, but so yeah, you can just see that just adds like just a little bit extra emotion to the character. And another thing I'll say about the highlights in this piece is that you had the right idea by making them very, very bright. It looks like you might have used like a linear dodge layer on top of them. But it's almost just a little bit too big. Like, you'd almost want let me just see if I can do a separate layer here. You'd almost want these highlights to be a little less large. Oops, I still have the soft circle on. Dum-dum-dum. Fix that. Alright. So you'd want it just to be like a little less. I guess I could have kept the soft circle on. And then you could still have it as large as you did, but just have like the really bright parts only on the very outline, and then you can have like a lesser brightness to it. You could also soften it as well with the blur. But especially like up here, this line here doesn't need to be so dark, or so bright. Maybe just add a little more there. And especially since like this part of the leg here, the light shouldn't be hitting as bright, same with the paw. And especially on this character, I found the highlights to be just a little too aggressive. So I would just lessen them a bit. Something like that. Like, I like how you kind of dulled it out in his forepaw, and that's kind of something that's would be nice to have a little more throughout it. But yeah, like, honestly, like, this piece is really awesome. Like, I love the way it looks. I think you did a really great job on it. Those are just very, very minor changes that just kind of help bring out some extra drama. Let's just kind of zoom in a little bit so you don't see the... Yeah, just a little before and after kind of thing. So yeah, I hope that was helpful, but like, you're doing a really great job. It's just, you kind of just need to take that extra step to push the contrast and the lighting in it, and that's about it. So yeah, awesome job. Alright, I'm just gonna take a very, very quick break, guys. Sorry, I don't usually take them this quickly into the stream, but I need to go get another drink and just take a quick bathroom break, all those joys. So just give me a couple minutes here and I'll be right back. Alrighty, and I'm back. Got some more water. Should be good to go. If I won't lose my voice. Alright, see you later, Sega. I'm glad I could help out. Alrighty. So, next on the list we have Ashley Winky. Oops. There we go, and we're at 55 minutes roughly. Alright. So Ashley just wants a critique on anatomy for their piece. So let's open that up. There it is. Alright, so this one. Okay. So, Ashley's character here is a lemur. They said they had some reference pictures, but they just couldn't quite get it right. So I just have a bit of advice on this. Lemurs are definitely very difficult characters to draw. Like, they're not your typical quadruped animal. They can switch between being bipedal as well as quadrupedal. So I pulled up some reference pictures here of some lemurs. Just kind of getting a better idea, because like I hadn't really drawn lemurs before, so I had to kind of get an idea of what I was working with. So one thing you can notice right away by looking at the lemurs is that their legs, their anatomy is very close to humans, whereas their back legs are a lot longer than their front legs. Their shoulders, like they do still have, they're obviously a little more different than us, because their shoulders can be a little more on the side. But basically, like the main thing I noticed with your character here is just the basic body language isn't quite suiting what a lemur's is. So I'm gonna have this one picture. Which one should I leave up? So let's leave this one. Leave that one up. So basically, I'll shrink this a little bit more so you can see what I did. Basically, all I did was I lowered the head of your character, because that's kind of like a lemur's head. It isn't really straight up like a cat's or a dog's. Their head kind of goes forward like this when they're on all fours. As well as, you know, they kind of have a slant to their body like this, because their shoulders here are a lot lower than their hind legs. Their snout is also a lot longer, but I mean, I think you got the snout pretty well good, you know, words. You can also make the tail a lot longer and fluffier. I think that would be really cute. And as for the face, I think something that could really help make your character stand out as a lemur is that lemurs have these very, very distinctive face markings where they have the black markings around their eyes, on their nose, and on the top of their head. So I feel like if you added those, I didn't really do a very good job since it's a very small picture, but, you know, have those dark lines around the eyes would really help. They also have very round eyes, which would really help your character read as a lemur as well. And yeah, like just having those markings I think would help your character a lot. But other than that, like I love that you did a really good job on the hands and feet. That's very, very indicative of the lemur. Like the rings on the tail look good. You did the body markings good as well. And I like how you had like the little puff on the head. That's very cute. So yeah, it's basically just kind of take a closer look at lemurs, especially like maybe watch some videos about how they move around and how they walk. It's a very, very different character to draw, and it's definitely going to take a lot more practice. It's not your everyday animal, so just kind of maybe take a little bit more time to research them, and I think you'll be able to do it no problem. So I hope that helps. I'll try and keep, maybe I'll keep this reference picture up when I upload it, so you kind of have an idea of what I was going for. Probably should actually kind of remove a bit of those markings I made. But yeah, it's very, very cute. Awesome job. I think you're on the road to making an awesome character there. So now, next person is Wild Catbird. The infamous wild catbird in its natural habitat. And Wild Catbird also submitted a picture, I believe. Ah, yes, this one. Alright, so this one's really awesome. First off, first thing I want to say to you, Wild Catbird, is you have very good technique when it comes to like adding texture on your drawings, like the fur, everything, and like I feel like I can almost touch it on the screen, you know? Like I don't even know if it's doing justice in the way I'm doing it, but like you can see all this detail that they have in this. It's amazing. Like, and all those scales that you drew on the dragon, whew, my goodness. So much work got put into this. So I just want to say right off the bat, you know, great job. I think your anatomy and stuff and the expressions is reading really well. And the composition is good. I know you wanted some critique on the composition, but I think it looks great. The only thing that I could find to really give some advice on for this is the shading. Now, this can be very difficult when it comes to traditional art, is getting your contrasts to be, like instead of having just the pure white and black that you're working with, you kind of want to add some gray into there. So you could do that by either just like taking a light pencil, like a 4H or something, and shading over some of these areas I'm going to show you. But yeah, so let me just show you what I did here. So what I basically did was added these darker areas over the drawing, so you can kind of imagine taking like a gray pencil or something over this to really make some of these areas stand out. Because right now, everything kind of just blends in with each other. You can't really tell what's in front of, what's supposed to be the focus, what's in front of each other, and stuff like that. So by taking these dark colors and really just making some areas, like especially around the eyes, especially these background areas that aren't really the main focus, because you mostly want to focus on the characters' faces. So just by darkening those areas, you can see how it really just makes things pop, especially like this horn here. If you darken the area around the horn just pops right out, and adds a lot more three-dimensionality to it. So that's the only real thing that I could say to work on. Again, like I said, I'm not well versed in like traditional art and stuff, but I'm sure you could look up some tutorials on how to kind of make things stand out. But like I said, I think a gray pencil crayon, just very lightly in some of those white areas, would help knock back some of these particular parts. Or even just a 4H pencil going over it, I think could really help. So other than that though, like great job, keep it up. I think your traditional art is super strong. So like honestly, just great job. And now we're going to move on to Heatherly, which had an animation. So we'll close that up. So again, like usual, open it up, listen to it a couple times, and all that jazz. Also just want to write in the time, we got 1 hour. Alright, so from what I can tell, this is a scene with Stonefur's death. Pretty sure that's Misty... What was her name before she was leader? Misty Foot? Misty Frost? God, I don't even remember now. Then we got, I believe, Stonefur and Feathertail? No. Yes, Stonefur and Feathertail. Or Stormfur and Feathertail. Man, I really need to read those old books again. But yeah, let's get this going here. So yeah, short and sweet. We'll play it a couple times. We don't really need the music on, so I might just even turn that down a bit. Alright, so it was Misty Foot. I forgot. But honestly, like, this is really awesome. Like, I love the way you're breaking down all the shapes and all the volumes. It moves really smoothly. The only thing that stood out to me, and which is just a bit of confusion since we don't have a background right now, is that I think you're doing like a truck in here? Is that why he's getting kind of bigger and his body's moving? If so, that's fine. I just kind of got a little confused there. I wasn't sure if you were just moving him by accident or if they were supposed to be a camera move. And let's see here. On this part here, the only thing I would say is really watch your arcs on his nose. So you can see, what's here? His nose kind of starts off here, it comes back again, but then it pops forward in this last frame. So just really watch the arc on how the nose is moving up with the head. But the movement's looking good. I mean, you could probably, I'm assuming you're probably going to put in a couple more in-betweens to smooth that out. That would really help. Let me just look at the movement here. Like, honestly, like, oh, I love the way he pulls himself up. You really, like, feel the struggle it is to get him on his feet. So, really awesome. I honestly don't really have much to say about it other than that. I think you're on a real good path to this animation, and I'm really looking forward to seeing the final product. So yeah, good job. Now we're moving on to Sacred Roses. I think there's a hyphen in between that. Alright, and Sacred Roses sent in a picture. They wanted help on foreshortening, posing, and anatomy. Alright, so I really like this. It's very nice and colorful. The colors, even though they're all very bright, they don't really fight with each other, which is really nice. So really great job on that. My first thing I ever jump to whenever I see a character holding a bow and arrow is Inuyasha, because Kagome uses the bow and arrow all the time. So I pulled up a reference photo here, which is a pretty similar pose to the way you have your character. Whoops, wrong layer. So basically, what would really help, like, I honestly think you did a pretty good job with the pose itself, like, with the foreshortening and anatomy. This hand in the front could maybe be a little bit bigger, and this one's actually a good size, but this one in the front definitely needs to be bigger. But the only thing that's wrong with this pose is that the silhouette of it just isn't really reading very well. So as you can see, the way that they'd have the arm down with Kagome here would really help kind of make your character read. So I kind of did like a bit of an over red line here. Let me just lighten it a bit. I should just have white as one of my colors. And let's darken that. Alright. So yeah, you really want to follow that shoulder line, have the shoulder kind of straighten out. You can maybe even have the chest like puff out a little more to kind of have a little more energy into the arms. And then as you can see, I like made the hand a little bit bigger, made it wrap around a little more. And I also turned the head, because the only thing that is kind of bugging me with the head is that you're never usually going to be looking at something through one eye if you're aiming at something. I don't know if you've ever shot a bow or not, but usually when you're shooting, you're going to be looking directly, like how Kagome is, at your shot with both eyes. If you're only looking with one eye, your perspective, or not perspective, what's the word? I'm losing it. What's the word when you only have one eye? Depth perception. Your depth perception is going to be off if you're not looking at it with both eyes. So basically, I'd say just look at reference pictures, and I mean, I don't know if you ever watched Inuyasha or not and knew this would be a reference picture, but I'm sure you could like look up archers and stuff to really get an idea for how they hold their bodies and hold the bow. I think you did a really good job though with her holding it. Let me just take a better look at it. Like maybe you could have had some of the tail end, well, one I'd make the tail end just a little bit bigger, and also maybe have her grasping the feathers, like have her finger over the feathers. But yeah, other than that, like, really great job. Like, I love how you did the hair. The hair looks great. The expression's very clear. And like I said, the colors look amazing on this. So, honestly, just a really great job. Awesome stuff, Sacred Rose. Or Sacred Roses. So now, we're going to move on to NanoNegative. and they wanted help on general critique, composition, and color and effect. Which when we look at the picture, you guys will understand what that means. Just write the timestamp down before I forget. Alright. And I believe I've seen a couple people asking in the chat there if there'll be a July critique stream. Yes, there will be. I'll try and have it close to the 1st of the month. Actually, I think July 2nd is a day off for me, so it'll definitely probably be on time at the end of the month, or beginning of next month. But yeah, let's move on to NanoNegative. So NanoNegative did this really awesome picture. Whoops, I even have a really awesome picture with a lightsaber. I'm not sure if this is supposed to be Rey from the Star Wars series or just Rey, another Star Wars character. But really cool. I love the little pink particle effects that you have around here. I love the blue. I think you did a really great job on the colors. There's not much I can really say about them, because honestly the colors look great. As for, what else did you say? Like, anatomy obviously is great. You didn't really ask for a critique on that. But as you probably saw in the beginning when I opened it up, because I forgot to turn them off, there are some things. Oops, I'm not missing anything. Alright, just making sure. So there are some things with the lighting that I would change just to kind of bump it up a bit and make it seem a little more dramatic. So right away, I went through and just did a multiply layer on some of the shading to kind of fix where the shading is a bit. Because there's just some areas where the shading should be a little bit different to follow the shape of the hair and the ear here. So I kind of just worked on adding some different shading. I also really darkened up this arm here, because it was already shaded, but I really just added some extra darkness to make this hand stand out. I also added some extra highlights as well. You just gotta be very careful with adding extra highlights to make sure it doesn't look plasticky. So a way you could do this is like my technique that I mentioned earlier in another person's critique, is where you duplicate your highlights, you do a blur on them, and that kind of helps soften them up a bit. And then you can kind of lower the opacity on some of them. Kind of makes it seem a little more natural, instead of just being a very harsh line like that was. You can kind of see the difference. And so I also just added some extra rim lighting on the hands here. And where else did I add it? And on the hair and the nose. And just a little bit on the eye as well. Just kind of like, yes, you have the lighting from it, but you also want to have like some intense lighting where it would be hitting very hard, you know? I also darkened up the side of the face a bit more to, again, just add some more dramatic lighting to the scene. This is kind of something that is kind of not exactly needed, but it just kind of adds something a little extra. So if you like it, you can add it. If not, not a big deal. I also added some highlights with the red lighting to help, since there are these little red lights all around, I kind of added it to the shadow areas to make it a little more contrast to the blue. So you can see that just kind of adds a little more. It also makes it so that this side of the head doesn't get lost in the dark lighting back here. And then as for the eyes, I just kind of changed the eyes a little bit. I added, since I added some shading to the eyes, I didn't want the highlights to be inside of the shade. So I moved the highlights to be closer to the edge of the eyes. I also added some color to them, so I made this one a little bit pink and this one a light blue. And I also just added a little dot on the pupil, because it's always nice to have some highlight on the edge of the pupil and the or iris, whatever you want to call that area. But yeah, other than that, like, I mean, this was a very strong drawing on its own. Stylistically, I think everything fits together. Like, when I look at it, my first thought isn't like, oh, this needs to be changed or anything. But these were just a bunch of little things that I thought could help bring out, just, you know, plus the drawing, add some extra contrast and drama to it. So, again, like I said, not needed, but if you ever want to try it out, that's something you can maybe think of in the future. So yeah, thanks so much for your submission, Nano. Really awesome stuff. I love your style, love your art. It's Good stuff. So now we're moving on to ArtsieWolf. And they submitted an animation. So let's open that up. Let me just put the timestamp down. Alrighty. Where do we have it here? Here it is. Alright, so like before, watch it a couple times with sound, without sound, and then I'll give my advice. Oops, forgot to put it on loop. Alright, so first off I can say that lip sync at the end was very nice, really good job. I think one thing that your animation would definitely have some help from would be to add a few more in-betweens. So if you could just add like a couple more drawings in between the movements of your characters, it would really help smooth out the actions. Another thing here is just like a little pop of the eye here. Try not to move the eyes around because, you know, the eyes are kind of stuck in our head in the socket. So you can move like the bottom eyelids and the top eyelids, but you never want to move like the position of where the eye is. I think that kind of happens a little bit in the beginning here too. Actually, no, not too bad. Yeah, so the beginning's good. But I also think you're like on a very good track. Like this, compared to like the other animations that I've seen from you, I see a big jump of improvement in here, which is nice. Also, just kind of watch some things. I can see the white part of her eyes disappears in that one frame. Just kind of something to keep in mind is consistency. It happens sometimes though. Don't worry about it. Also try and make it so that like, you know, you want to try your best for lines not to keep jumping around back and forth. That'll get a lot easier if you have a program that has like onion skinning and stuff. Let's see. I'd also, like, her mouth doesn't have a color in it right now. That's something you could add in. So that's right now it's just kind of showing the background. And also there's just some details like her mouth and the fur pops off here. So you can either have it starting off without that stuff, or just make sure you keep it throughout the whole animation. But yeah, other than that, like, it's looking good. I especially just love this last shot. This last shot's really good. I like it. And yeah, like your lip sync is looking great as well. Oh, you use Flash? Okay. Awesome. Yeah, so I think Flash should have some kind of onion skin option. I'm not sure where it is, but it should have one. And it would help out a bit. But yeah, good stuff. Really awesome, Artsy. The body, like in this drawing here, like in these few drawings, the bodies look good. This one, the only thing is that the character, since he's turning his head pretty dramatically, like usually if you're turning to look behind you, your shoulders will move as well. So it kind of looks a bit strange that his body doesn't move when his head turns. So like, honestly, the body looks good here, but it just looks a little odd in this frame here. It would just be nice to maybe see like his back turn a little bit as well. But yeah, other than that, the bodies look good and the rest of it. And how would you shade it? Well, shading can be a little bit difficult in programs like Flash and stuff. Like the way you did with the eye is, I mean, how you'd probably want to do it for the rest of it. I wouldn't even add too much shading, because like your background doesn't have very much shading, so you don't want to make the characters look a little different than the background. But just like I've been saying in other people's critiques, you know, make sure you watch where the light source is coming from. Maybe just add like, you know, very basic shading like under the chin and like very obvious areas where shading would be like the eyes like you have. But yeah, I think that's about all I can say about that. So yeah, just keep going at it, keep trying. It's looking great. Alright, so now we're moving on to AmarisTeMoon. I'm not sure if I'm saying that right or not, but I'm gonna say it's close enough. And just write down the... Oh, we're making pretty good time so far, so I definitely think this, doing the red lines ahead of time definitely helps. So let's go to Amaris. I believe there's a picture. I can't remember if I did anything to that one. Yes. Okay, yes, it was this one. Alrighty. So for anyone who probably recognize this, this is for the Je te pardonne, however you say French words, Sally's map, or Sagittarius's map. This is for the thumbnail contest, I believe, or else it was just a fan art of it. So I did make a mistake where I actually drew this red line on the background, so whoops. They mostly just wanted advice on like the backgrounds and like trees and water and stuff like that. I think the way you drew the water fits very well with your style. The only thing on the background that I would really change is maybe adding some trees in the background, since that was kind of part of the map, was that there's birch trees all around. I like how you like faded the background though and have the stars in the sky, because like, so I would almost just add these trees, but I would keep the stars in the background, so I think that's a really cool stylistic choice. The expressions and the anatomy looks great. I wouldn't really change anything about that. And something I changed in the background here was I just gave them a little more room to sit on, because right now Squirrelflight and Brambleclaw are kind of sitting on the trees, so you kind of just want to move it back a little bit. And as for shading trees, this is something I even struggle with. I'm not the greatest at backgrounds when it comes to trees and stuff. But something that people usually do, I'll do this on a separate layer, and zoom in a bit. So I'm going to take a dark color and a little lighter color. So people usually like highlight the leaves like this. This looks terrible, but they like draw the individual leaves and have some like dark space underneath it. And then they'll usually take a lighter, like a softer brush. Oops, I'm on the eraser. On the eraser. And kind of like blend them in a bit. Like this. Which, in hindsight, you should do this like separately and not all on the same layer. So you can go through and define the edges again. So that's just like a little thing. There's better tutorials on it. Like I said, I'm not the greatest at it. As you can tell, it looks terrible. But once you like do the whole thing, it looks a lot better. But if you don't want to do that, you can also just adding like outlines of these leaves and stuff would be really helpful to adding some texture to the trees. But like I honestly like think the way you do trees looks good the way it is. I think it's a very simplistic style, which really works with the way the characters are and stuff. So I wouldn't change too much about it. Other than that, I don't have too much to say about this one. It's really nice. I love the colors, love the characters. So I think you're on the right track with it. So just keep going. Keep going and keep doing awesome stuff. Alright, now we are on to Cat said what? Oops. And I think we're getting close to the parts where I didn't get to do the things ahead of time, but I think there's still one for this one, yeah. Right, they had the pixel art. Alright. So they mostly just wanted some tips on the shading. So pixel art's definitely a little more difficult to do shading. So what I just did is I just added in some some blocks of like solid darker color that you had throughout here. 'Cause I like the way you did the texture of the fur, and I think that's really nice, but I think that's something you should add last. So you should definitely like just block in these shades where you want the shading to go, as well as some highlights. Like I did some little bits of highlights here and there. So you should block the very big chunks like that out first, and then from there you can do all these separate fur textures, kind of like what you did with the eye. Like block out those colors, but then you can just add some more texture to it. I'm not like the greatest at pixel art. I don't really have much advice on that, but like, I don't know, I think this looks great. Like I think everything looks great. Like the fur looks good, you can really tell the texture. This was when I had trouble finding things to say about, so just keep trying it, and maybe just try, like I said, adding the block of shade, adding some texture on top of it, and hopefully that'll help out. But honestly, just awesome stuff. Now let's move on to, okay, this person's name I don't actually know how to say. I'm not sure if it's Scartheshrop or Scartheshrop. I have no clue. But their part's next. Alrighty. Let me just find their piece. Alright, this one. Okay, so they wanted tips on anatomy and shading. So first off, I'm going to say anatomy-wise, like, I don't have much to say about this. I think your anatomy looks great. There's nothing that's standing out to me as looking wrong, and like, sitting poses are pretty difficult, but I think you pulled it off nicely. So I'm not really going to take too much time to comment on that. But as for the shading, I will show you what I did for this one. So I kind of just put where the light source is, because right now your light source isn't really well defined, as well as your shading is very light, especially on the red. So you definitely want to add some darker shading on the red and white, and also crisp it up, make sure it's not as soft, like I've talked about in past critiques. So here are the areas where I would add some darker shade and some highlights, so the yellow the highlights, the blue the shade. Just definitely keep in mind where that light source is coming from. The face doesn't usually need too much shading on it, because you don't usually want to have your face fully in shade. But other than that, like, I think you have the right idea with the shading, but like I said, just try and add a crisper edge to it, try and darken it up a bit in some areas, and just really keep in mind about the three-dimensional shape of your character and where the light's coming from. But I don't have too much more else to say about that one. That's just kind of my 2 cents about that. I also added some like crisp highlights to the eyes, because like your eyes are very glossy, so they're gonna have a very, very crisp highlight to them. So that's just also something to keep in mind. But yeah, awesome stuff. Alright, now we're going on to Blurinq, I think is how you say it. I'm gonna say that's how you say it. And we're at... Alrighty. Alright, so yeah, I didn't do anything on this one, so I kind of just wanted to talk through it instead of doing a paint over on it. So they said this was, I think they said this was one of their first attempts at digital painting or something like that. It looks really good. I think I think the composition looks good, so I know you're wondering about that. I don't think there's anything I would really change about that at all. But just keep in mind some of the things I talked about in the other critiques about having a more defined shadows and light and have like more contrast to the shading. I would also add some, oops, wrong color. Let me just go through and add a little bit of redlining to some of the things. Boop, boop. Alright, so I'm not sure if your character's just wearing a mask or if they're anthropomorphic or not, but I'm just going to assume they're wearing a mask for now. So I do see like the mask edges here. So one thing I would do is have make sure you're drawing out that human face underneath first if it is a mask, and then drawing the mask on top of it. Really think about the like geometry of it. And with that, the eyes kind of need to be in a different place, because I think you were kind of following more of an animal face, but if it is a mask and it's a human face underneath, you kind of have to think about where the human anatomy goes. So I definitely have like the eyes over here, a little more wide. I'd also move the hair out of the way a little bit more, so you can see more of the expression of the character. And maybe have some more like dramatic movement to the hair. Just to kind of up the intensity. It's kind of like a little bit of an anime thing to do. And then also just think of, let's just kind of play with the anatomy here, but I'd almost have this arm out a bit more as well. Because like if they just got stabbed to the heart, you know, their arms are gonna kind of be out, kind of like in shock. And then really have the chest pushed forward, which you pretty much do. I think I made this arm a little bit too out there, but then just really think about like the roundness of this object that's coming through. It looks like it's like a horn, like a kind of spherical conical horn. So you just really want to think about the shape and how that would come through the body. So like kind of draw a hole where it would come through, and then connect the dots, kind of thing. Yeah, that's all I could really say about like anatomy on this piece. Let me just see here. Yeah, I think that's looking good. But as for like the colors, I think you picked some good colors. Just like I said again, really watch on crisping up those lines. I think the texture in the hair is really nice though, really good job on that. I think you're on a really good start. Like I know you said you hadn't drawn in like digital for a while since you've done this piece, but I think it's something that you should definitely keep up. I think it's looking good. So yeah. I think that's where I'll leave that one off at. So good job. Alrighty. Alright, so now we're moving on to FawnDapple. And they want help with shading and stuff like that. I remember which piece this is now. I don't think I did I don't think I did any previous stuff on, oh wait, did I? Hold on, hold up. Yeah, I saw it there. Alright, so I didn't really do too much about this. This is going to be more of a talking piece than me drawing over it. I know you said you prefer soft shading, which is fine. You at least added some contrast to your shading, which is nice. But it would be nice in some areas to add some crisper lines. It's something you can maybe practice in the future. But definitely keep in mind where your light source is coming from, because they're kind of coming from different places for different characters in this. And I know you said you're having trouble with, like, same face syndrome, we know that thing, but I don't know, I think you honestly, like, the characters all look different. Like, this one, Hawkfrost, has a different shaped eye. Breeze Pelt's eye looks a lot different than his. And even, like, the face shapes and the hair and stuff is different enough to keep it from being same-facey. So I wouldn't worry too much about that, FawnDapple. I'm just trying to think what else. I know you said about the tabby stripes, so I think stylistically the way you're doing them looks fine, but if you want to make them look more realistic, do I have this? Yeah, okay. So a more realistic tabby stripes would be, they usually just go across the body, and they really just follow the muscles and stuff that are underneath. So that's you kind of want them to go that way and just really follow the contours of the body. And like you can add some like extra lines here and there. I'm just doing this very dark so you can really tell where they are. And stuff like that. But like the ones on the face, like these under her eyes, look fine. You don't really usually see tabby stripes on ears, but like I said, they work really well the way you do them. And again with like the paw lines as well, just have it follow more of the anatomy underneath. What else? Anything else you'd like me to talk about for your piece, FawnDapple? I could just quickly go over where I would put the shading and lighting in this, so maybe I'll do that quickly. Cause like I said, you did a pretty good job figuring out where this stuff goes on your own. But maybe just having a little more defined, I mean, if you ever do want to try doing more defined edges, I think that would help. And yeah, like same goes with the ivy pool here, just kinda, I really like how I did the darker kinda shading under her eyes and stuff. I think you have a pretty good idea of how shading works, so I'm not gonna spend too much time on that. But yeah. Awesome stuff. I think you're on the road to understanding the shading and stuff a little more, so just keep practicing. And thanks so much for your submission. So now we're going on to Vampyr Knight. Vampyr Knight. And there's, yes, I do remember this one. I did some stuff on this one before. Alright, so here we have a piece with Crowfeather and Nightcloud. Yes, Nightcloud. And they were submitting this to be part of the thumbnail contest for the Somebody to Love map. So first off, the number one thing I'll say about this, composition-wise, is if it is for a thumbnail, YouTube thumbnails have to be 1080p, or so 1920 by 1080. So first and foremost, I just cropped it so that it would be that proper size. So like you can rework this however you want, but I figured that would be the best place to crop it at. And so I'll go through, I did do a couple things ahead of time here. One of the number one things I thought would be a good idea is to move these trees back, because right now they're kind of competing with the silhouette of the heads, of the characters' heads. Since they are such dark characters, it would be nicer to have them stand out against the lighter sky than the darker trees. So because of that, I moved the trees back a little bit, just by messily kind of trying to draw in some sky there. And I also added some light highlights along the characters. This will really help sell where the light's coming from, like the brightness of the moon. Along with that, I added some other highlights as well, and some darker shading to give it more of a night scene. And then you wanted to ask how to brighten up the moon. So what I did was, which you can do in Sai as well, because you said you were using Paint Tool Sai, I made a layer and took a kind of very light yellow. I made an overlay layer and just kind of brushed it along the moon. If you don't want to lose the details on the moon, you can lower the opacity just a bit. But usually if you want the moon to look like it's glowing really bright, you don't want to add too many of the details onto it. And then you can also just do that by adding like a softer brush, like an airbrush around the edges of the moon as well to soften it up. But yeah, honestly, I think I like what you were doing with the shading here, but the purple color is almost just a little bit too light for the scene. If you could make that light purple and make it a multiply layer, and really darken it up, and kind of follow the contours of where I shaded it on this one, I think that would really help your piece out a lot. And I also added some highlights to the eyes as well. That's something to kind of keep in mind. But yeah, other than that, like the anatomy, you can really feel the motion between the characters, so that's really great. So just keep that up, and then if you want to plus this thumbnail a bit, you can maybe keep in mind some of those suggestions I made. So hope that's helpful. I'm not sure if I missed, no, didn't miss any comments from you. Good. Alright. Save this. Boop. And now, moving on to the next person who wants to stay anonymous, so I'm not going to say their name, but we will open up their piece. Anonymous, where is Anonymous? There it is. Alright, so I'm just going to leave the name blank for this one. What time are we at? 1:42. Alright. So they wanted help on the character design, the palette, and anatomy and shading. So I think the colors that you picked are very nice. I don't really have too much to say about them. The background might be a bit bright, but it kind of fits with your character, so I don't really want to touch too much on that. Alright, so let's see what else I can... let's work on the anatomy first and foremost. So this one I didn't have time to do anything ahead of time on it, so just bear with me as I go over it. Boop. Alrighty, just want to make sure I'm not missing any comments. Good. Alrighty, so I'm going to start with the leg anatomy. The thing that's really sticking out is just these forelegs here. Cats actually have very short, kind of, bottom parts to their legs. So it would look... So let's just let's draw the hip here. This is where the knee would usually go. And this is what would be considered like our calf area. And then their foot, like their bottom part of the legs is like our feet, kind of. So let's just edit that a bit. So that's kind of more so the shape of what the leg should be. It definitely helps to draw out like these joints. So be like, okay, this is where the hip starts. This is where the leg or the knee goes to. and then just kind of figure out the rest from there. Another really thing, this is for everybody to keep in mind, it's a little helpful tip, is this area of the leg and the foot usually end up being the same angle. It's just kind of how our anatomy and like our cat anatomy is. So you can do this and push it back, but it is more realistic that if we were to do that, we should move this leg back a little more and straighten this out to be like that, so it's the same angle as the foot. And I still have my soft brush on that, it's not working. So that's kind of where I would put the leg, that leg at least. And then you definitely want to include the kind of meatier part of this leg as well. And so let's just kind of put it there. A helpful thing to do with the body, if you want to try practicing this in the future, is kind of plan out where the chest is and where the hips are going to be. And instead of making it go in on both ends, you can make it go like a little bit straight on one end and then a little bit round on the next. But on like any kind of animal and in humans, you'll rarely see the body go like in that dramatically. But if one end's gonna go in, the other end's gonna go out usually. So you'll never usually see the body go like that. If anything, it'll go like that and with a round on the top, if that makes sense. And then with the shoulder, so a helpful thing with the shoulder anatomy, the shoulder scapula is kind of shaped like that, so I usually end up drawing that out. And then from this front line, I'll draw where the elbow is, because they have very, very short elbow kind of areas. Let me just see, this person's commenting on Discord. No, I don't think the body's too long at all. I find the general length of a cat's body to be like 3 heads long, so like 1 head, 2 head, 3 head. So I think the body is a perfect length. I wouldn't worry too much about that. And then let's just see. And from there you kind of like just connect the elbow areas. That might even be just a little bit too far back, but I think that your front legs definitely look a lot better than your back legs. So I feel like you understand those a little more, which is good. And as for the face, maybe just something you can keep in mind is keeping the eyes on the same perspective as like the rest of the face. So we'll just go like that. So the eyes are just a little bit crooked right now. You could just straighten those out a bit. And the ears look nice. I think they're very cute. Nice style to them. And let's see, whoops. And the tail's good as well, but maybe I would. So that's kind of the shape of what the tail should be, like the bone underneath. And then you can just kind of buff it up on top of that. So this is all like the fur kind of hanging off of it. Let's just darken that a bit so you can see it a bit more. There. And I'll just draw on the neck here. But like I think you're on the right track. I think you just if you just want to study anatomy a little more, or look at other people's you can study other people's art a little bit to see how they draw cat bodies and see how they stylize it. But those are just basic anatomy things to keep in mind. Let's see, what else? What else were you wanting to have advice on? And shading. So I won't spend too much time on the shading since I kind of covered it a little bit before on other people's parts. But I think you have the basic idea of the shading. Again, just kind of keep in mind where that light source is coming from and kind of picture where things are going to be shaded onto the other things. That words come to my mind. So okay, let's say the light source is coming from here. So, whoop, light. So you have this right idea of shading under the chin. Maybe adding just a little bit of just block shading here, which you did. Maybe some shading at the bottom. Like, again, you did that perfectly fine. I would almost just shade this whole leg here. It's usually a stylistic thing. You don't have to do it, but shading the back legs kind of helps the front legs pop out. Maybe just some shading on the bottom of this leg. But like you did a good job on the bottom here. And maybe just a bit of shading over here. But yeah, like overall I think you have a good understanding of how shading works. And like the colors you picked were nice. I liked the colors a lot. So I wouldn't worry too much about that. But yeah, just kind of really pay attention to where the light source is coming from and how the 3D, what's the word I'm looking for here? How like the structure of the body is going to create shadows on the rest of the body. So I hope that helped. I hope that was somewhat helpful. And yeah, so thanks so much for your submission. I think you did a really great job. Keep up at it. And to Budgie in the chat there, the Discord server is for the people who submitted only. That's where they submitted their stuff, and that's just how I'm getting their questions as well. So next, we have Cheetah. FD Cheetah. Let's open up their piece. And they just wanted to have some help on expression, poses, and making things a little less stiff. So yes, I do understand what you mean by making things stiff, so let me just... whoop. Alright, so I honestly don't really find your drawings to be that stiff at all. I think there could be some work done on the anatomy a little bit. So let's see. Is this a rabbit or is this two cats? Let me know. I see the longer ear, so I think it's a rabbit and a cat, if I am correct. I'm just trying to think here. Poses, expressions. Like, I think your expressions are very clear, at least to me. Since they're so far away, it's kind of hard to get very detailed expressions from long shots like this. Like, you can tell easily, like, the expressions that are coming from here. As for the poses, like, let's just kind of go over this one here. Again, like I've mentioned in other people's, like, kind of just keep in mind where the body's at. I think you have the right idea with the legs. Nothing wrong with those. Maybe just kind of figure out where a ground plane is will help make things kind of even, I guess is the word I'm looking for. And as for the tail's looking good in this one. Just trying to draw through and just kind of think. I think the ears are a little bit too forward on most of these, so like the ear would be a little further back, I think. A rabbit and a cat, okay. And the anatomy on this arm right here is looking just a little rough. Just make sure you kind of had the idea where the shoulder was. But the hand wouldn't really wrap around much like that. It would kind of more just be sitting on the rabbit's head, kind of. Because cats don't really have that good of a grasping thing with their fingers. Yeah, so something that really helped with the ears is just kind of like draw a circle on the back of the head, sort of, where you think their ears would go, and then kind of draw the ears up from that. As for this one here, let's kind of take a look at the bunny. So bunnies have a very kind of distinct way that they run. So like I think you did a good job on the cat, except for maybe this leg back here should go more like that. You have it kind of bending backwards a little bit. And the bunny should be more kind of hopping. So you have his legs up there, but then they kind of hop along like this, more so. Rabbit anatomy can be kind of complicated. You might want to try and really study that. They have a very different anatomy when it comes to compared to cats. I don't know. Mine looks terrible too, but or not terrible too. Mine just looks not very good there. It's not quite working, but I also think it just looks really cute. I love it. I think this one's probably definitely one of the better ones on here, and so is this one. I like this one a lot too. Let's see. Just thinking what else could be helpful here. Yeah, definitely watch videos on how they run. That'd be very helpful. I can't really think of much more to say about this. I think basically just need to kind of keep an eye on anatomy, maybe look at drawings that other people have done of rabbits and cats, and just really study how their legs work and stuff. Like I brought up with the past person's review, it's really helpful to draw like the bone joints in their legs and stuff. That makes it really helpful to figure out where the paws go and stuff like that. And rabbits would work very similarly to that as well. But yeah, just keep at it. Practice makes perfect as always, and reference is your best friend. But yeah, really great job. Thank you so much for the submission, Cheetah. Now we're going to move on to AlbinoDino Studio. And I believe theirs was a drawing. I don't think I've opened this one up yet though. Yeah, no I didn't. AlbinoDino. There it is. I was wondering where it was. Got this super cute Pokemon picture. Let me just quickly write down the timestamp before I start. We got 1:57. Alright. So I think I'm mostly going to focus on the maybe anatomy for this one. You also wanted line art and shading as well. I also think your line art looks fine. Like I don't have much to say about the line art as well. Like maybe some places are a little sketchy and you can just kind of focus on making like a smoother line, but like you did that on the hair and stuff, so I think you know how to do that. So I'm not going to spend too much time on the line art for sure. But let's just look at the anatomy a bit. Again, your anatomy is looking really great in this. The torso might be a little bit long, so let's just kind of draw a few things out. So here's like the rib cage, and the pelvis would be more up high here maybe. Like it's not too far off from what you have. Just kind of trying to draw it out, kind of see where things could be improved. yeah, I don't know. I don't have too much to say about the anatomy, actually. It's working really well, especially with your style. You got the neck on very well. The expression looks cute. You might maybe want to have the arms have a little more room for this Torchic to sit in. Right now it kind of looks like she's squishing the poor little Torchic in there. So you could just give a little more room to it. If you want to look at like references of people crossing their arms as well, that could kind of help with some of the things there. I'm doing a really bad job kind of trying to show it. So let's see. I don't know. I don't really think there's much I can say about the anatomy, actually, so I might keep it at that. Definitely just make sure you're drawing, like, I think you are drawing, like, the pose underneath before you put on the clothes and stuff. So yeah, I'm not going to spend too much time more on that. So let's just go quickly on to shading. Again, I'm probably going to be reiterating a lot of stuff that I said before about the shading, but just in case you didn't watch the other ones, I'll give a quick review. It does seem like you have an idea of where the light source is coming from, which is a good start. So let's say the light's coming from there. Boop, 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 boop. I really like the highlights in the hair. I think the hair is probably the best shaded part of this. But you could definitely add some more crisp lines to the rest of the body. Because that's something that I find, like, you do have it like under here where the belt is and stuff, but try and add a little more crisp kind of cell shading like that along the way. Even if you do want to blur it a little bit after, but just make sure there's some kind of edgier kind of, what's the word, crisp, I guess just crisp, that's the best word I can use. Just make sure there's a little bit of that here and there. You do have it good on the face, just maybe add a little bit more shading underneath the chin, maybe underneath where the hair's lying on the face. A little bit under the nose is kind of a typical anime thing to do. Maybe some shading on the arms here as well. You got the shading under the belt really good, but maybe some shading on the belt. Yeah, I think you have a basic idea of the shading. Just really keep in mind of the volumes of your character, and just really try and think where the light would be hitting in relation to the anatomy and stuff. But I honestly think this drawing is like just super cute. I don't have too much to say about it. Just keep practicing and keep it up. Good stuff. Alright. Now, who are we moving on to next? We got Genus Entertainment. Alright, 3 more. We're making some really good time this time. I'm happy. Genus Entertainment. So they have an animation that they submitted. I'm gonna have a little bit of a hard time giving critiques on this one. You'll see why. The animation's really good. So, I do have some things to say about the acting in it though, so let's open it up first. And I'll show you guys what I'm talking about. So they took a line from the movie Treasure Planet and just animated it with, I'm not sure if it's their own character or just another fan character. But yeah, let's play it for you guys so you can get a look at what they got going. Oh, hold on. I turned my audio off. Let me turn that back on. There we go. Now we should have audio.
Mr. Hawkins, in the future you will address me as Captain or Ma'am. Is that clear? Mr. Hawkins. Mr. Hawkins, in the future you will address me as Captain or Ma'am. Is that clear? Mr. Hawkins. Mr. Hawkins, in the future you will address me as Captain or Ma'am. Is that clear? Mr. Hawkins.
So, I'm just gonna say right off the bat, like, you know how to animate, like, damn, like this part with the finger, like, one, I can't draw hands to save my life as it is, so the way you, like, smoothly animate them, I love the little bit of, like, what's the word? The little bit of smear that you add to it. It's really great. I love it. However, I think the acting could use a little bit of work. I might actually need to keep the sound on for this one. So in the beginning here,
Mr. Hawkins, in the future,
it looks like the character, like they're talking to the character standing over here. I'm assuming it's like where the Mr. Hawkins is. However, like, it would be nice to either see this character in the beginning looking at that character to kind of get an idea where, in the beginning of the scene, where this character is. Because it kind of seems like at this first line they're not really addressing them.
Mr. Hawkins,
So like even when she opens her eyes there, she could be looking at him and like over here instead.
Mr. Hawkins, in the future you will address me as captain or ma'am.
Like the part there is fantastic. I wouldn't change anything about that.
You will address me as captain or ma'am. Is that clear?
And then this part's good. Like I know why there's this big gap in the animation here, just because I watched the scene from Treasure Planet just to kind of get an idea. So in the original audio, in the scene, they cut away to show Jim Hawkins. I think this is his name, Jim? I can't really remember. Anyways, they show him, and then it's kind of like him not paying attention. So it kind of looks a bit odd because there's so much dead air. And this character's just kind of like staring for a long time. Like, I like how you had the blink in there, but I'm trying to think what you could add to it.
Mr. Hawkins,
Like, you'd almost have like an expression change before the Mr. Hawkins at the end. Like, maybe have like a very like deadpan, like ugh kind of look to her face. Like, really, you're not listening. And then they can blink and go into this pose. Because it just otherwise just seems like they're just staring for a really, really long time. So it's either you can add that, like a bit of an expression change there, or you can just cut the audio a bit to make this dead air a little shorter. Let's see what else. Like, yeah, you definitely understand, like, your animation principles. You got some nice anticipation in there. Like I said, like that, looking at finger animations is so good.
Mr. Hawkins,
And, like, I think that last one, works well, too.
Mr. Hawkins.
So yeah, it's basically just this area in the middle here where it has that dead air that's kind of throwing me off.
Mr. Hawkins.
Like, even maybe like a shoulder sag before her shoulders go up here. So like when she does an expression change here, like, oh, you know, like her shoulders sag, like, really you're not listening.
Mr. Hawkins.
And yeah, and then again in the beginning, just make sure either in the beginning part here or after she opens her eyes that she's looking at the character that she's talking to.
Mr. Hawkins, in the future you will address. Mr. Hawkins.
I'm just trying to think. What else?
Mr. Hawkins, in the future. Mr. Hawkins, in the future.
I would even maybe keep her shoulders up in the air a little bit longer. So like she'd have her shoulders in the air, say Mr. Hawkins, and like instead of having her open her eyes here and just stare at nothing for a bit, maybe have her shrug, keep her in this pose right here until she turns her head in this pose. So you can say Mr. Hawkins will keep her shoulders up, and then when she goes to look at him, she can lower her shoulders and look at him, if that makes sense. I think that would be helpful. But have the other character... Oh, you're gonna have the character walk across the screen. Okay, I gotcha. Which is why she looks in the one direction in the beginning. Okay, that's cool. I'm totally down for that. So in that case, ignore the thing I said about the eyes then. But yeah, I still think it would be helpful if she keeps her eyes closed and her shoulders shrugged up until she turns her head here. But trying that out, but either way, your animation is looking fantastic, and I look forward to seeing this finished. So yeah, keep it up. And now we are moving on to SpottedFoxStudios. You guys are just like adding these studios into your names, eh? It's cute. So Spotted Fox. Alright, we have this one here. I don't think I didn't start anything on this one yet. So, whoops, I didn't want to open it. I wanted to open it into Photoshop. Please. There we go. Alright, so we got this cute little drawing here by Spotted Fox. So they wanted some help on anatomy, face shape, and the good old same face syndrome. So I'm going to actually comment on that last part first about the same face syndrome. I think these characters, like, at least from this example here, I don't see a problem with same face syndrome. You can definitely tell there's a difference in their face shapes, how this character has more angular eyes, has a bigger jawline, while this character has a much more rounder face. So I think it looks fine. I wouldn't worry too much about that. I think it'll come to you the more you practice drawing and stuff like that, and maybe the more you learn anatomy. You can also play with faces a little more, but I wouldn't make that your first thing to focus on right now. So let us just kind of get a thingy going here. Whoops, that looks cool. I meant to do that and go like that. Alright, so I think this character's anatomy is looking pretty good, except for you can tell their forearm is a lot shorter, or sorry, their bicep is a lot shorter than their forearm here. So something you can do to fix that would be just have their elbow, whoops, go on the right layer, save that, have their elbow go a little higher like this, and then connect the arm to there. So you won't even really see the elbow, but you can just have the arm go up, and it'll be kind of hidden behind the head. But yeah, like I find like especially just on this character, especially that the forearms are very short. It's kind of a thing that's difficult when you have like chibi kind of characters that have bigger heads than their bodies. I find that it's very hard to get their hands on the top of their heads because of that. But we can still try and do it the way you have it here. So like I said, you got the right idea there, but yeah, their biceps definitely just need to be a little bit longer. And so let's just draw their rib cage in here. Draw where their bum would go. And if you don't know what the bean is kind of like an art thing where you connect the bodies in these kind of like bean shape, you know? So it's definitely something that could add to this drawing, because right now we're missing kind of this spot in between their legs, so they don't really have a butt. Which I mean isn't the worst thing in the world, but it just kind of makes this leg look like it's floating in the middle of nowhere. So I think you grasped the idea pretty good with these legs. It's just you really need to add in this butt area, the hip area, to the legs to make them kind of work a little better. And so let's draw in this leg. And these feet. And so this leg would also come out of the hips, maybe a little out more though. That looks a little better. You definitely just want to make sure you're drawing that structure underneath your characters before you're putting on clothes, before you're really defining where the body is. You want to kind of just draw a rough structure around it before. I'd also maybe, I mean this is a stylistic choice, you don't have to, but usually with these chibier characters with the larger heads, you usually want to have a little bit of a smaller neck with them. You don't have to, but you can. So that's something you can test out if you want. But honestly, the expression looks really good on this character. I would almost even, to make this problem with the hands not being able to reach the top of the head very well, I'd maybe even sink their head in a little bit further. And then you can have kind of the perspective you had on this one for that arm. Maybe I'll add that on a separate layer to kind of give you an idea. But if you have the head sunken down a little more, it'd make it easier for their hands to reach the top of their head. I'm not an expert on wings, so I'm not going to give too much information on the wings, because, like I said, I don't have much to offer there. Drink break, hold on. Alrighty. So let's move on to the other character here, which I'm going to do in blue, I guess. Why not? So I think one thing, I know that, I kind of know why you wanted that hand to be there. But with the way that this character is sitting sort of behind the other character, it would make more sense for their arm to kind of go behind the wing. So that they're kind of like wrapping their arm around them, like it's okay, you know, like patting them on the back. Again, just drawing out that chest area and the pelvis a little bit. And that, with that bean. So you'd want the legs kind of come out of the front end of this bean. And you'd want the jacket to be more up like that. Right now it's kind of covering the legs a little awkwardly. So let's just kind of move those. And like I think you had the right idea with these back legs, but maybe have him sitting on the legs a little more. Or on his feet, I should say, not his legs. And then you had the right idea again with his arm. Just laying on his lap. That looks fine, so I'm not gonna spend too much time with that. And then with his head. Yeah, I think this character is looking pretty good. I'd say just mostly the lower bodies are kind of where your drawings are falling short a little bit. Other than that, though, like, I think this looks really cute. I love the expressions, I love the eyes. I think all you need to do is just kind of study anatomy a little more, kind of try and figure out how the bodies work underneath the clothes before you draw the clothes on top of them. And I think it'll really help. But I hope this sort of gave a little bit of clarity to what I meant, and I hope that was helpful. So thank you so much for your submission, Spotted Fox. And we're on to our last one. Awesome. We're making great time today. I'm really happy. Let me know if you guys are liking having the stuff drawn ahead of time. If that was still helpful to you guys, then I'll definitely do that in the future, because it definitely makes these streams a lot shorter, a lot easier on my voice, and stuff like that. So I'm finally not having to rush through some of these at the end. So I hope you guys are enjoying that. So let's just do this very last one here. Stanciulescu. I honestly don't know how to say this name, I'm so sorry, Anna. Stanciulescu is the best I can do. I don't know how to say that, so that's my best guess. So let's open this up. I didn't do any work on this one yet. So this is a very nice drawing, very nice colors, very nice atmosphere to this one. I really enjoy it. But you really wanted help on composition and shading. So if we're looking at a setting sun here, let's take I think the composition's honestly fine. Maybe something that would be better is if the cat... Here, let me just... I'll redline a bit of things that might help with the composition. Yes, so for the submissions, at least in the future, I'm doing it strictly Discord just because it's a lot easier for me to organize and stuff like that. And yeah. Sorry, I don't really want to answer chat questions while I'm doing the critiques here. So let's say that this is like, I'm not sure if this is like a mountain or something that they're standing on, but let's just say this is where the horizon line is, roughly. I'm gonna add that dip in there if you want, that's fine. Gosh darn it, I keep drawing on the wrong layer. So I'm actually just gonna leave the background the way you have it. But I think composition-wise, it would be nice to, let's see here. Kind of gotta think this one through. I think it'd be nice to have the cat sitting more on the edge of the like horizon line there. And it would almost be nice to have just at least so we can see the full body. Like, I don't really, it's kind of it's either have this cat fully in screen or just have his head here. Either or, I think, would make this composition a little stronger. And I would almost, I'm trying to think of what to do with that cherry tree there. Let's see. It'd almost be nice to have the tree on this side. So that he's kind of sitting underneath the tree. And then maybe, I don't know, have some rocks or something over here to add a little more interest. You could also have some like foreground elements, like some grass. Just lighten that up a bit. And some rocks, kind of. And then I think that would just really highlight the sunset here and kind of make this area more the focal point. But other than that, like the composition that you have, it still works, but I think this could just make it a little more like intense and stuff. As for the shading, since the lighting is coming from in front of this character, I'm actually just gonna do a multiply layer here, lower the opacity a bit. So the shading would be more like a basic shade. Alright, I think we're back. I hope. Let me just wait to look at the stream, make sure we are back. Okay. I think we're good. Let me know if I'm back, guys. Gotta love OBS crashing. Alright, so I mean, whatever. We're on the last one at least, so it's almost done. So let's get back at this. So I think this picture could definitely do better with some more crisp shading. That's the word I'm going for. 'Cause especially like when you have a sunset, the shading to highlights are very dramatic usually. And we could also do that technique that I talked about earlier, where you duplicate it and blur the one layer to kind of add some softer shading, but as well as keeping that kind of harder edge. And then you could do that as well for the tree, and maybe add some more highlights to the ground. So like a highlight around there, and just kind of really add some definition. Maybe figure out where that tree is sitting. and stuff like that. And like you could do those same things to like these other compositions if you wanted, or just to this composition here. I would even add some shading into those blossoms and tree maybe. Let's stick with that one, I guess. Maybe I'll do some soft, just to kind of give it a little bit of shading here. So yeah, just kind of add some highlights to like the outside of the leaves. But like honestly, like the sky is gorgeous. I love the colors. Like I said before, the colors are really good in this. You just need some extra things here and there to make the shading and highlights pop. You could even like add, let's go back to a different brush here. You could even add some just more sharper highlights to the edge of this cat, just to make it really seem like the sun's shining off of him. But other than that, like, really great job. Like I said before, great colors. I think you had a really good concept here. But with that, guys, I think that's where it's gonna end. So I hope you guys enjoyed this. Luckily, we got to make this a little bit shorter than the last ones, because I felt really bad when the last ones were going like 4 hours, and you guys were probably like, oh my god, why is this so long? So I'm glad that we got to make it shorter by doing the red lines ahead of time. So I hope that works for you guys. Like, I hope you guys enjoyed having them done ahead of time instead of just watching me contemplate things in my mind and have silence. There'll definitely be another critique stream at the beginning of July. And maybe now that I can do this a little quicker, well, no, I think I'll stick with 30 submissions. I think that'll be the max. Because I don't want to go too much longer than this 2.5 hours. It's already hard enough on my voice already. But yeah, thanks so much, guys. I hope this was helpful for all of you. Even if you weren't getting your stuff critiqued, I hope that the advice I was giving to others was helpful for you. And I'll have this uploaded with all the timestamps and stuff. Maybe it should be fully uploaded with timestamps in the next hour or so. But yeah, I hope I see you guys next time, and I'll be doing, of course, more streams during the month with just me working on other stuff, so keep an eye out for those, and I hope I'll see you guys in the next one. So have a good rest of the day, guys, and we'll see you later. Keep drawing. Bye!